All right, let's go to the next chapter of The Borrowers. Remember, the story itself starts with a woman named Mrs. May, who's very old. She lives with a relative of some sort named Kate. And she and Kate are talking about a story that Mrs. May's brother told her about when he was very sick one time and had to go live with some other relatives. So, this is the brother story, but Mrs. May is telling it. Remember, I'm not going to use a Mrs. May voice during the times when it's the narrator, even though she's the narrator. She's telling about a family of very small people who live under the kitchen in this house that her brother was at. And their names are Pod is the father, Homily is the mother, and Ariette is their little girl. And we've seen that they use normal size things for us for different things. So they'll use a tureen, which is like a gravy boat for a bath. They take a whole potato and just cut off a part of it to use to make soup. So we will learn more about them. And when we last left off, it was mostly Homily and Ariette that were talking because Pod was out. All right. Sighing, Ariette put away her diary and went into the kitchen. She took the onion ring from Homily and slung it lightly around her shoulders, while she foraged for a piece of razor blade. "Really, Ariette?" exclaimed Homily. "Not on your clean jersey? Do you want to smell like a bit bucket? Here, take the scissor." Ariette stepped through the onion ring as though it were a child's hoop and began to chop it into segments. "Your father's late," muttered Homily again, "and it's my fault, as you might say. Oh dear, I wish I hadn't." "Hadn't what?" asked Ariette, her eyes watering. She sniffed loudly and longed to rub her nose on her sleeve. Why was her eyes watering? Hopefully you realize it's the onion that's doing that, if you've ever helped cut onions. Homily pushed back a thin lock of hair with a worried hand. She stared at Ariette absently. "It's that teacup you broke," she said. "Oh, but that was days ago," began Ariette, blinking her eyelids, and she sniffed again. "Oh, I know. It's not you. It's me. It's not the breaking that matters. It's what I said to your father." "What did you say to him?" "Well, I just said, 'There's the rest of the service,' I said, 'up there, where it always was, in the corner cupboard in the schoolroom.'" "Well, I don't see anything bad in that," said Ariette, as one by one she dropped the pieces of onion into the soup. "But it's a high cupboard," exclaimed Homily. "You have to get up by the curtain. And your father at his age—" She sat down suddenly on a metal-topped champagne cork. "Oh, Ariette, I wish I'd never mentioned it." "Oh, don't worry," said Ariette. "Papa knows what he can do." She pulled a rubber scent bottle cork out of the hole in the hot water pipe and let a trickle of scalding drops fall into the tin lid of an aspirin bottle. She added cold and began to wash her hands. "Maybe," said Homily, "but I went on about it so. What's a teacup? Your Uncle Hendry never drank a thing that wasn't out of a common acorn cup. And he's lived to a ripe old age and have the strength to emigrate. My mother's family never had nothing but a little bone thimble which they shared round. Oh, but it's once you had a teacup, if you see what I mean." "Yes," said Ariette, drying her hands on a roller towel made out of surgical bandage. "It's that curtain," cried Homily. "Why, he can't climb a curtain at his age. Not by the baubles." "Oh, with his pin he could," said Ariette. "His pin? Oh, I led him into that one, too. 'Take a hat pin,' I told him, 'and tie a bit of name tape to the head and pull yourself upstairs.' It was to borrow the emerald watch from her bedroom for me to time the cooking." Homily's voice began to tremble. "Your mother's a wicked woman, Ariette. Wicked and selfish. That's what she is." By the way, every time they say her bedroom, the H in the her is capitalized because they mean the older lady that lives upstairs that's kind of bedridden right now because it's her house, and so they call her. They don't use her actual name. "You know what?" exclaimed Ariette suddenly. Homily brushed away a tear. "No," she said. "What?" "I could climb a curtain." Homily rose up. "Arrietty, you dare stand there in cold blood and say a thing like that?" "But I could. Oh, I could. I could borrow. Oh, I know I could." "Oh," gasped Homily. "Oh, you wicked heathen girl. How can you speak so?" And she crumpled up again on the cork stool. "So it's come to this," she said. "Now, Mother, please," begged Arrietty. "Now, don't take on." "Oh, but don't you see, Arrietty?" gasped Homily. She stared down at the table at loss for words, and then at last she raised a haggard face. "My poor child," she said, "don't speak like that a borrowin'. You don't know, and thank goodness you never will know," she dropped her voice to a fearful whisper, "what it's like upstairs." Arrietty was silent. "What is it like?" she asked after a moment. Homily wiped her face on her apron and smoothed back her hair. "Your Uncle Hendreary," she began, "Eglatina's father," and then she paused. "Listen," she said. "What's that?" Echoing in the wood was a faint vibration, the sound of a distant click. "Your father!" exclaimed Homily. "Oh, look at me! Where's the comb?" They had a comb, a little silver 18th century eyebrow comb from the cabinet in the drawing room upstairs. Homily ran it through her hair and raised her poor red eyes. When Pod came in, she was smiling and smoothing down her apron. So we get the idea that borrowing can be a little bit dangerous, and that's why they don't want Arrietty even thinking about trying to do it. Pod's the only one allowed to go borrowing. But Arrietty kind of is an adventurous person, isn't she? She wants to know what it might be like to go borrowing. I think if we were tiny, we would want to know too.